But I'm also like, even this notion of Black history, because that language in and of itself is problematic. It's history.
It's history,
As soon
exactly.
as we put Black in front of it, we've already kind of put it in a place in our DNA because we've been conditioned to think Black is less than, and we got to work through it. We got to
And
fight our
people,
anti-Blackness
and when
every
you
day.
say it's Black History, people think, okay, we'll pull that off of the shelf on February, and we'll go through the books and look at the flashcards or whatever, and then at the end of February 28th, we close that up, and then we put it back on the shelf, and we don't think about it again, as opposed to intertwining that throughout the history of what Black people have done throughout the world.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.
Leslie in Atlanta is on. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. Hi.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Joel. How are you?
Awesome.
I called in a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure really what happened. I was the person talking about our group starting a homeschool group and getting our accreditation. And I'm not really sure what happened with the phone, but I think you were trying to get a little bit more detail about all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to add kind of to Dr. Elmecki's toolbox or starter kit, if you will, is I taught public speaking and honors English and logic. If you guys can incorporate that in your starter kit, it is invaluable. Really having that. But yeah, a few of us ladies got together, started that homeschool group, African American homeschool group, and it grew from there. And all of our kids went to college debt free because they did dual enrollment. And we did this about 20 years ago. So it's doable. It's needed. It's needed now more than ever. So, yeah.
I am definitely seeing a lot. We have a homeschool group in Nubia as well. I just met this brother called up. His daughter is 10, homeschooled, amazing, brilliant. And I'm seeing a lot more of us because, to Joel and Dr. Elmecki's point, if you have been inundated, as I was with, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, 1492, and we had to memorize all of these fake dates and things and regurgitate them or else, so we mastered this, the history and the language and all of the things, all of the books from Call of the Wild, which hurt my soul. Willa Cather, all this hurt my soul to read these books. I never got a Zora Neale Hurston. I never got a Toni Morrison. I never got, well, came after me, but a Zora Neale Hurston, I could have gotten that. I could have gotten Langston Hughes. I could have gotten the Black Boy. I could have gotten all of that. I never got any of those books until I became an adult. And that would have really made me even more radical, more powerful.
Karen, which is really interesting is when Juneteenth was a celebration we were starting to talk about it nationally, being a national holiday. I was in the car with my mom, who is in her almost 80, and I was like, we did, because we're in Southwestern Virginia, we didn't really celebrate Juneteenth, right? And I remember telling her that, and she was like, I did. And I was like, no, you didn't. And then she was like, I did. We did all the time in school. And I'm like, oh, like the education that she got in an all Black school was different. We went to the exact same school, which is wild. I went to the exact same school that my mom did like 25 years later. And it was like a completely different thing.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
But we didn't have any of the same education.
Isn't that's something? I mean, I'm listening to Radical Equations now, and I'm listening to it slowly, taking notes, and it's talking about the civil rights movement, but also this kind of like, and in one part, he's talking to students, and they were like, yeah, Martin Luther King. They think that Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, everybody lived the same time. They don't have any perspective. And he was like, wait, you knew Martin Luther King? He was like, yeah, like they think it was like so far. It was like during slavery time, like there's no perspective. And it's because of that separation that you're talking about. Now, I have books in my home. I'm talking about in the classroom,
Yeah,
having an
absolutely.
instructor, having other students to bounce things off of. Of course, my home was full of books that represented, all facets of
Yeah,
blackness. But to be educated, it also validated those authors, right? It told me
absolutely.
this author's better than that one as a young person because I'm studying them in school, Shakespeare
Right.
and Chaucer,
Exactly.
you know. This is important. I feel like we're at a time though. They don't broke the thing. Let's break it. Let's crush it into
Yeah,
sand.
break it again, and let's go back in and fix it so that we can educate children in a way that is better. Like
I
to
say, I say, I say, not fix it. Let that thing be broken. Unless there's
make
a
something.
scripture about putting old wine into new wineskin, or new
Yeah,
wine into old wineskin. This thing ain't. It's
it's not
never
working.
been for anybody, not just black people. You
No,
know,
absolutely.
Dr. Elmecki talked about Thomas Jefferson didn't want everyone smart or critically thinking. He wanted you to be civilized enough to work to keep the
Yeah, and that
capitalism going.
and that's
We need
and
you
most
to
people
right.
like you, Karen, you probably talked to so many people, and I'm sure a lot of listeners don't even understand how many people don't understand that the American education system was built to create factory workers. It was not designed to create people who were college bound, right? That's why we have bells. That's why we have batches. That's why we have all of the things that we do. Everybody sits in because they were designing you to make you sit at a machine and basically not cut your finger off for the 8 hours that you're there, 8 to 16 hours.
Oh, Pavlovian. You just said something. This is Pavlovian. This is crazy, right?
It's
You're sitting
wild.
in rows. You're sitting in rows. The bell rings. You get up and you go to the next thing. The
Yep,
bell rings. You take lunch. You go. You're not
absolutely.
learning.
No. And then they take out they make the curriculums teacher proof so that teachers can't be creative in the classroom. Because I remember even when I was going to school in the 80s, there were teachers who were able to be more creative to like throw something out and put something else in. So you got the individual teacher, whether they were white or black, that were actually really innovating in the classroom, and they eliminated that. You can't do that because you got to teach to these test scores. And the test, as Paulo Freire says, is domesticated. You are training domesticated thinkers, right? I want feral thinkers. I want a thinker that like challenges me in the classroom. I want somebody that's like, no, Joel, that ain't the way it goes. You should think about it like this. And I want to go like, oh, I never thought about it like that. I want that kind of back and forth in the classroom. I don't want people to just sit there and go, is this right? Is this the right answer? Is this right? Because that's
Correct.
what that's the way we're teaching her. It's
You are so
wild.
right. Okay, let me go back to the phones. And thank you for your call, Leslie in Atlanta. Let's go to Kim in Texas. Kim in Texas, you're on with Joel Christian Gill.
Hi,
Welcome.
Kim.
Hey,
Hello, Karen. Hey, how
hey,
you doing, Joe? Hey, Karen.
hey.
Hey, I'm calling in regards to your conversation today, and I've been on Larie's show a couple of times. But what we have, you talked about that starter kit. We have the starter kit. I'm with a company, Black History 365 Education. We have developed a K through 12 Black History series of textbooks, the whole curriculum. That is available to the public. We sell to school systems across the country. We're in about 450 districts across the country. New York City Schools is our largest district. But everything that we have for school systems, individuals can have in their home for their personal use with their kids. You just had the woman that was on talking about her her homeschool community. This is a tool that's out there, and it's
Mm-hmm.
already put
Mm-hmm.
together. And uh-huh.
Yeah, but no. Yeah, but no. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not great. I'm saying that when I think of toolkit, I'm not just thinking about books and I'm thinking about curriculum shouldn't even be curriculum. We shouldn't even be using that term. I'm thinking, and it's really difficult because you put a lot. I'm looking at it, put a lot of time and work and effort into something based on this current system because it feels like it's following, grades. I'm looking at it right now. So this is I'm not talking about this at all, but I'm sure this is a good resource. And I'm saying that and everything. So if it works, it's like diet plans, right? What may work for you may not work for me. when I think of toolkit, I want everything in this bucket, that if I'm coming in and my child may be an auditory learner or visual learner, there's something in this toolkit for that child. And I'm not saying you haven't broken that out, but I'm just seeing the structure of it feels very,
It's
very
more of
like,
a it's
it's
more of a and less of a map and more of a compass, right? So like if you have a
yes.
map and you go to Cleveland, you have a map of Cleveland, you're good. But if you teach somebody how to read a compass, then they can go to Cleveland and somebody says go north, they can do it, right? And that's the thing. It's not about what you teach. It's about the ways in which you do it. So how you give educators and subsequently children the skills that they need to think critically as opposed to what they need to think about.
And nice that you try to come here and promote your thing. I ain't mad at that at all. I think people should shoot their shots. But I'm also like, even this notion of Black history, because that language in and of itself is problematic. It's history.
It's history,
As
exactly.
soon as we put Black in front of it, we've already kind of put it in a place in our DNA, because we've been conditioned to think Black is less than, and we got to work through it. We got to fight our
People
anti-Blackness
and when
every
you
day.
say it's Black history, people think, okay, we'll pull that off of the shelf on February, and we'll go through the books and look at the flashcards or whatever, and then at the end of February 28th, we close that up, and then we put it back on the shelf, and we don't think about it again, as opposed to intertwining that throughout the history of what Black people have done throughout the world, right? Not just in America, but the Black diaspora around the world, what we have created. We don't talk about that, right? And we talk about it as a separate thing, as opposed to talking about history as a, this is a really good point, Karen, because at multiple schools that I've taught at, we've always talked about how do we decolonize the curriculum. And I've always asked, like, how do you do that? What do you do what are you talking about? And most people don't know. They're like, I want to make an anti-racist curriculum. But what I did at one school is that instead of teaching art history as a linear process, like from Europe, from Eastern Europe, until from, 00 Eastern European to now, I was like, let's teach it in themes, right? Let's look at like how people have addressed different things in specific art. So let's talk about portraiture, because portraiture exists all over the world. So we can look at portraiture as it exists all over the world. We could look at themes of community all over the world. And that way you decolonize it. So you don't focus it on Western European art. You focus it on like these ideas that sort of permeate all types of art, whether it's, Degas or some artists in South America or some artists in China, right? Like these are the things that we talk about. And I feel bad now that I can't actually say an artist in China.
Yeah, but I was just, when
South
you said
America.
that, I said, there are a billion. How many billion? There's a billion people in China. Who's a Chinese artist? Like, they don't do art in China. Like, it's
Yeah.
wild that we live in a world where the majority of people do not live here. They're not from here, and we can't name an artist like
Or, or just, like just a really good example of this is the way that I learned about African art when I was in college was in relationship to Picasso and Brock stealing African masks. Right. Not to talk about the long tradition of what those masks meant. Right. And like how I can separate them from the Europeans. Right. And in some ways, Picasso and Brock was doing a little bit of that. They were looking at those things because they would only been taught about the old masters. Right. And so they were looking at other types of art. And that's what we did. Right. And I think that that's a way to do this, as opposed to thinking of like we need to tell history in a linear fashion. Talk about themes of history and how those things repeat themselves. Right. Because we have uprisings every couple of 100 years in this world, right? We don't have to say we're going to talk about the American Revolution. Let's talk about the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, and the Chinese Revolution, and the
Haitian,
the Arabs, the Haitian Revolution or the Arab Spring. We can talk about that all at the same time because they all have similar kind of things happening to them, right? And we can talk about themes about humanity because that's the key, right? We're talking about humanness, humanity, right? We're not talking about just black, brown people or this. We're talking about all people because we do this stuff, right? These things happen over and over again because we are all really close and similar in the way we think about things.
And when Olivia said, white people are uniquely positioned to break these things,
Yes.
the challenge is those of you, because y'all are listening, people who don't have a whole lot of melanin, y'all are listening. Whiteness is a made up construct, because if you listen to the show, if you're a part of the show, not just trolling and mad in your feelings and calling up being hateful, but if you're a human being listening to the show and you don't have a whole lot of melanin, you know that there's a construct that puts you in a category that
Yes.
automatically makes everybody that's not in your category less than. And that was done through music, through art, through television and movies, which is also art. You know, you think about Birth of a Nation and this drumbeat advertisement. I talk about my dad with the Gold Dust Twins and feeling really, really self-conscious about being a dark-skinned Black person because he was inundated with ads that showed him as dirty.
Right.
And, you know, and so there's always this kind of like thing that we're trying to break. And those of you who benefit from the system should be the ones out there with the hammers.
Yes,
You should be the
absolutely.
ones out there with the hammers. Olivia's absolutely right. And I love that she said that because she is doing it. She messes with them. She F's up their minds because she's not supposed to be doing the things she's doing. But that is a requirement if you really want to live in a society where everybody matters, unless you only want you to matter. And I'm going to tell you the trick of this. As you are sitting in the seat of oppression, watching everybody being snatched up or whatever, and you voted for this, it's happening to you. You know why I know it's happening? Because your representatives are like, hey, wait a minute. You mean my rural people aren't going to have health care? You mean my state that's 99% white? Wait a minute. Because you can't give America pneumonia and expect, or a cold, and expect you not to get sick by it. It's
Exactly.
happening. They are infecting all of us. You're not going to be able to escape it.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will